Hey, welcome to another album, and today we actually have Trivium, which is a band that I've actually heard quite a lot of, so technically this is gonna be one of those where I'm not finding an album, but rather I'm just re-listening to it after a few years of not listening to it, because that's kind of what I do, I don't just talk about, or I don't just listen to music that I don't listen to sometimes, or I've never heard. Sometimes I listen to music that I have listened to and I just want to talk about it, because it's fun, I mean, it's not, like, come on, are you gonna tell me that it's not fun to talk about things that you like? Like, come on. So yes, today we have Trivium, Silence in the Snow, which is probably one of my favorite albums of Trivium, which I know, when this album was released, this album was released in like 2016, I think, and a lot of people were like, oh my god, Trivium are selling out and this is pop. It's not pop, alright, like, it's still an heavy metal album like every other, fucking Trivium album. It's a regular album, it's just that, yes, it has have a higher focus on perhaps the more melodic parts, and especially on chorus and everything, and definitely gives a lot more time in certain songs to breathe. I think the perfect example of that is Until the World Goes Cold, which is how I came across this band on YouTube. Just, recommended the song and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I find it funny that a lot of my music was actually discovered in like 2016, around that year, because of songs just getting randomly recommended to me on YouTube. It was the same thing with Opeth as well. Like, Sorceress had just come out and I got recommended that on YouTube, so it's a bit of a weird coincidence, but yes. And pretty much, it's a pretty good song, and you can really hear a lot of the space that the song actually gets to evolve and slowly change, and in a way that actually complements the song really well, because the song overall just feels very distant, or at least like it gives you a vibe of, being distant, right? That's the feeling that it passes to you, and that's so very well. I mean, with the name like Until the World Goes Cold, right? It does a very good job of making you feel that, coldness, making you feel very alone and everything. So yeah, basically this album has a lot of that, where a lot of the songs do have a little bit more space to exist, because if you've heard Trivium before, they do not let up. Like, these people are just fucking balls to the walls 24/7 pretty much in their albums, right? Especially if you heard their more earlier albums, which tended to be a little bit more heavy, although the more recent albums that they've released have also been pretty heavy, so it's not that they've pretty much changed. This is probably like, quote-unquote, the softest album that Trivium have from my memory, which is actually funny because it's still pretty heavy. It's not as super heavy, because a lot of the focus is more on the singing and everything, and something else is this album has a lot of clean singing. Matt, the singer, usually, it's the heavy metal, you just scream your fucking lungs out, but here he actually pretty much mostly does clean singing, which actually is really good, because it does, it allowed them to explore a lot more that side of clean vocals and everything, and it's something that in later albums they actually incorporate a lot. These dynamic between the pretty much screaming versus clean vocals is actually really good, and it creates a very cool dynamic in their songs, which is something that I find really cool about this album. This album mostly follows on like the melodies and everything, and in later albums, despite the later albums being heavier again, it seems that they took that to those albums, because a lot of the later albums, like the album right after this one, The Sin and the Sentence, you do have a lot of like these melodic moments, especially in the chorus, but you also have a lot of like heavier moments outside of the chorus. So they pretty much use this album as a way to perhaps make or improve on the parts that, in my opinion, Trivium wasn't that strong, which was the chorus and the more melodic parts, because I discovered this album first and I went back, I listened to every Trivium album, and people really talk big about the Sentry and Embers to Inferno especially, or Embers to Inferno. Let me just say, I wasn't a huge fan, because it was just very heavy. Okay, cool, we have screaming, where's the melodies, bro? In a way, it was kind of the same with Opeth, where I was like, oh, like, cool, you have all of these melodies and everything. Where's the melodies? It's just fucking screaming your lungs out, you know what I mean? What the hell's going on? So, wasn't the biggest fan of them. Although, actually I should listen to them again because it's been a very long time since I have. I barely remember most of the songs. So yeah, basically, this album is a bit more on the softer side, but it's still heavy and it does focus more on the, I guess, chorus and everything. And it's really cool. I mean, it has a lot of... Okay, I would say most of the songs here, from a technical level, are perhaps a little bit more simple than, their albums. Especially when it comes to the drumming. I feel that the drumming is super technical nowadays. They have a really good drummer, and you can really hear the difference between this album and The Sin and the Sentence, the next album after this, where like that album has very like fucking technical drumming parts and shit like that, and this is just not saying that they're not technical, but definitely way more like simple than what they have been doing after this, which is fine. Again, I think that the simple drumming actually works really well for this album, and it would be interesting to see an album like this, but more from a perspective of the drumming being way more killer. But again, like here is more about giving the songs a little bit more time to breathe. And again, like the most popular song in the album is Until the World Goes Cold. It's by far the most popular song in this album, and there's a reason for that, because it's the song that actually allows, especially the bass to build up, the drums to build up. It isn't super like technical balls to the wall, just like it's a nice song, it's a nice heavy song with some nice melodies, a very catchy chorus. That's it, right? Like you don't need super fucking crazy ass thing, you know what I mean? I think it's actually probably one of the most popular Trivium songs. I think it might be the most popular Trivium song, actually. I would have to check other platforms, but I'm pretty sure on YouTube it's like the most, or the song with the most views. So, hey, maybe the fans were wrong on this one, I'm just gonna say, maybe the fans were wrong to hate on this one. But yeah, and the rest of the album, unfortunately, while the songs do have a little bit of space to breathe at the same time, I think that some of them don't fully, but it's fine. It's mostly like, I would consider this like, this is gonna sound weird, but it's like heavy metal pop, because like a lot of the composition of the songs are definitely more on the simple side. They're definitely more focused on the melodies and everything, and as a result the songs are actually really approachable, which I actually think is a good thing, because it did allow a lot of people to actually get into this more heavy metal style, because I do think that it can be unapproachable at times. So on that regard, it's fine, and honestly a lot of the songs are really catchy. For example, songs like Blind Leading the Blind, it's kind of quote-unquote uninspiring as a song, because it is a bit like basic, but it's still a very good song. It's a very catchy song. You just throw it on the background, it's pretty good, right? And pretty much every song sort of follows that. In this album, I wouldn't say that, outside of Until the World Goes Cold, I wouldn't say that any song stands out, right? But it's sort of that case of, a lot of more art rock and emo style bands like Three Days Grace, where yeah, no song stands out, but all of the songs are pretty good, right? Because that's what happens with the rest of the album. Pretty much every single song, I remember bits of every single song, every single one, and all of them I'm like, yeah, this could be like a single that they could have released, it's fine, like all of them are pretty much very competent. There was another, Dead and Gone is actually a song that I enjoyed a lot, because I think that song actually is the perfect example of what album is. Like, that song is, or at least the style of that song is what's going to be repeated for the rest of the album, and it's a pretty good song. I actually loved it a lot, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Again, it's a very good contrast between being heavy, being catchy, mostly showcasing Matt's clean vocals, but also having a little bit of space to breathe, because for example, on the I think it's on the bridge, I actually don't remember the place of the song, I think it's on the bridge, where you have Matt singing, you have very, very like stripped down drums, and then you just hear the bass, right? And that's what I mean, like, it's more stripped down than other albums. Other albums would just go crazy on that part, they would have guitar and everything, right? So it's nice that this album actually does take it a little bit slower on that regard. The last song that I probably want to talk about is Silence in the Snow, the title of the album. It's actually a really nice song, and I would place it, I think it's a very strong opener, because it sets the tone for what the rest of the album is gonna be, pretty much, right? And then when you listen to Blind Leading the Blind, and then you have Dead and Gone, and that's pretty much like the rest of the album. Right, those are the opener songs, and yeah, that again just sets the tone for the rest of the album. The album actually, interestingly, opens with a song called Snowfall, which is an instrumental, a minute and 30 long instrumental, just a little intro. I don't know if it was like, it's hard for me to try and put my finger on what they were trying to do. I think that if I have to think about it, they were probably trying to like set the atmosphere with, or at least try, because they use orchestral instrumental, right? And it's just like, I don't, and like, are you trying to like introduce more of a fictional place, and as a result you're trying to create an atmosphere, or like, I didn't quite understand what the point of it was. To me it just felt a bit perhaps out of place, if I had to say. Again, like, I just don't really understand it too much, which is a shame, but it is what it is, I guess. There wasn't a big problem, but it actually reminds me of one problem in this album, because as much as, this album is solid and the songs are fun, there's this one problem where throughout the album, and this is actually, every time I hear this, it absolutely confuses me. I was hearing orchestral instrumentals in the middle of the songs, and I thought, wait, what the hell, do I have anything open in my like PC that I, I'm not, seeing, or something? Like, what's going on, right? Like, is it the game that I'm playing or what? No, it's just the fucking songs have random instrumental fucking orchestral instruments, just randomly in the middle of the fucking songs, right? And that every single time that has happened, that I've realized that, it has confused me. Like, a few years ago, it was the same shit. I was listening to the song and I was like, wait, what the hell is this? There's some like background sound going on? Because the way that this actually like sounds in the album is that it sounds like the album is on the background, the instrumental is on the foreground, right? That orchestral instruments are on the foreground, and then you're like, wait, what the hell is going on? What started playing, And then they end, and then the song like sort of goes back to normal, and you're sitting there like, wait, what the hell? What did I just hear? And just, it left me really confused, and I don't know if it was intended or not, I don't know if it was intended to be part of the song or not, but it definitely confused me. When I say the song, this actually happens in multiple songs. But yeah, it really, really confused me. It's a thing that, I can already see, like, 2 years from now, I'm gonna be listening to the songs, and I'm like, wait, do I have something open in my PC or on my phone or whatever? Why am I hearing, like, fucking orchestral music in the middle of this, right? It's gonna be exactly the same. I don't know what happened there. Again, I don't know if it was intended and they just didn't have the time to, fully realize that part of the album. Maybe the album was gonna have a lot more, instrumental orchestral parts to fill in some of the silence, which in my opinion would be a mistake, because I do like the more, toned down parts. I think they go well, especially with the atmosphere of the album and the pretty much the place that the album, the story, the narrative that the album is trying to build, right? Because silence in the snow, you know what I mean? It goes well. Or if it was just like a mistake and someone left it in accidentally and no one realized, because I don't. Like, I'm pretty sure it happens in multiple songs though, so I think it was on purpose. And the fact that the intro song is also a orchestral instrumental makes me believe that it was actually like some point or something, and they just kind of gave up on the idea in some songs and didn't like fully realize that idea, and then they just kind of forget to remove it from the songs that were already finished. But yeah, it's really jarring when it happens, and it's by far the worst part of the album, I would say. But even then, like, even that, yeah, because I think, does that only happen in one song? I don't actually remember anymore. Like, I could have sworn that happens in more than once, but now I'm not being reliable when it comes to it. Regardless, it happens. It's really jarring when it happens. Regardless if it happens only in one song or not. I know that if it happens only in one song, it happens multiple times. I'm like 90% sure of that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It was overall very enjoyable. Oh, one more thing, album cover. I haven't been talking about album covers because, quite frankly, the past album covers have been kind of not very good. They've just been kind of there and they're fine, whatever. I actually really fucking love the album cover of this album, actually, because it's just their mask. This is like their mask that they have for the band or whatever. This actually shows up in other albums and whatnot. It's like the theme that they're going for. The album cover is just a mask, a white mask on a white background, and then it creates a little shadow underneath, and it's so good, because essentially when you look at it you go, oh, that's a pretty like simple, even curated type sterile, album cover, but because of the shadow it sort of creates this sensation that there's something underneath, that there's something sort of going on there, that you're not getting like the full story, you know what I mean, that there's something hiding, and that's kind of like the name of the album and album cover, right? So the album cover is basically all white, and then you have Silence in the Snow. So with how sterile the album cover is and everything, it fits perfectly into the album name, right? Silence in the Snow, because you do have white, completely silence, and the fact that it being white is snow, right? So pure mask, all white, silence in the snow, right? But then, because it's sort of, even the album or the album title sort of evokes this idea that, oh, there's something probably going on, which connects really well with the shadows, because obviously, for an album, audio, like from an audio perspective, right? If you hear an album called Silence in the Snow, like, how does Silence in the Snow sound? It sounds pretty boring, so you kind of start casting your mind like, no, there's something like there that we're not being told, right? And that's the imagery that the album cover also conjures, right? So when you're getting into the album, you're going into the album with this atmosphere in mind, right? In your like subconscious, you're like, okay, there's something else going on, right? And as you start listening to the album and everything, and you start like hearing all of the songs and whatnot, and what they say, and all of these allusions to fighting and the world being cold and everything, I found that pretty fucking cool, honestly. I'm gonna say this is amongst my favorite album covers that I've ever seen. It's super simple, but it does such a heavy lifting, creating an atmosphere for the album, right? It's so underrated in my opinion. It's probably one of the most underrated aspects in this album, in my opinion. It's the fucking album cover. The album cover is absolutely killer, in terms of theming and in terms of creating an atmosphere. Even before you listen to any song on the album, absolutely killer. Which, by the way, and I usually don't actually talk much about this, but the video clips for some of the songs that have been released. So this album, there's like 4 video clips, I think. The 2 that I really enjoy is Until the World Goes Cold and Silence in the Snow, particularly because they're in black and white, pretty much. They're entirely shot in black and white. Silence in the Snow actually does something even more interesting, which is they have some paint in some shots, because most of the things there are white, like even the instruments are white and everything, and they have some paint in some shots that, because everything is black and white, the paint is gonna look black on the video, right? And it's sort of like this, tainting of the snow, right? You're tainting the white, so you're tainting the snow, right? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like, people have trashed on this album a lot, but I actually think that there's so much thought put into this that people actually don't quite realize, and I just love the theming. I think by far one of the best things about this album is the theming, right? But they sound like they sold out because it sounds like, shut the fuck up, honestly. Like, this is one of the best Trivium. I don't even give a fuck, right? This is one of the best Trivium albums, straight up, right? The fucking songs are good, they're catchy, Matt shows the fucking clean singing. It was an important step in the band's discography, especially for Matt to, find his clean vocals and to just improve his clean vocals. And then the fucking theming is just absolutely killer. So, you know what? Vibe meter wise, I'm giving this album a solid 9 out of 10. Straight up, just 9 out of 10. I think it's a fucking solid thing. I don't know, I like it, and I like to talk about it. I like to talk about it as well. But yeah, I'll see you tomorrow with another album.